Hey, I'm Tom, and I don't understand or get French kissing. Let's stop doing that as a species. But you know what I do get? I get jobbers. I get them on a heartfelt level. I get them on a metaphysical level. And I just think they're a lot of fun. And this is our third video saluting some WCW jobbers that I love. Again, disclaimer, like all the other videos, I don't like the term jobber. I think it's demeaning. Enhancement wrestler's probably the best term for everybody to agree on. However, the YouTube algorithm prefers jobber. It's what it has decided is the proper term to look up these gentlemen and other folks. Between it just becoming part of the lexicon, and then there's also the jobber pervert YouTube community that like watches jobber videos to do whatever to themselves, which I'm not judging. I get it, gotta do what you gotta do, man. That word and me saying that word in the video, it helps out the video. It gets it viewed more, and when it gets viewed more, I get paid more and more eyeballs are on it. And everything that I do is for attention and money. I am a needy little boy, a needy little 30-something boy. So let's get started with our first jobber. This guy is a total weirdo, and he's taken advantage of the fact that Americans are freaking ignorant. I almost cussed. YouTube doesn't like cussing, but I almost cussed because we are ignorant, and this man took advantage of our ignorance. I'm talking about Kola Khan. No relation to Tony or Nick. Maybe. Let's go back to a time in history where Americans didn't know a darned thing about Mongolia. 1990. Kola Khan was one of a handful of wrestlers who certainly took advantage of that ignorance, billing himself from the East Asian country despite being an old Tennessee journeyman named Terry Adonis, who got himself a funny haircut and mustache to fit in with all these kids and their newfangled cartoon gimmicks. Back then, dudes like this either became regulars on Cops or got trained to wrestle. Nowadays, they cut out the middleman and do Facebook Live videos from their car every day about vaccines and Joe Biden being replaced by an actor. Khan popped up on WCW TV a couple of times in 1990, including one of the few televised matches of Tim Horner's Blue Blazer spinoff, The Star Blazer. The Star Blazer match was especially interesting since it was so lethargic that a 1990 WCW crowd in Cobb County, Georgia started a boring chant. I guess they don't smarten you up about fancy high spots in Mongolia. Khan disappeared from WCW programming as fast as he creeped onto our TV screens and went back to the Kentucky and Tennessee indie scene well into the 90s. And despite all my research, I couldn't get a clear answer as to whether or not the children of Mongolia had to learn about that Star Blazer match for history class. For this next guy, I think we need to kind of, layer the tan, go out in the sun, slather on some baby oil flecks in the mirror, put on our little bow ties, and slip on the vest. In tribute to the Golden Boy, Chick Donovan. The Golden Boy was a successful territorial wrestler in the late 70s and early 80s, most notably as a member of Jimmy Hart's first family in Memphis. But arguably his lasting legacy in the industry will be as pro wrestling's oldest body guy. By the time he began popping up for job duty on WCW TV in 1992, he was already 45 years old. But thanks to his tanning routine, he appeared to be north of 60 from the neck up. But from the neck down, he looked like a competition bodybuilder half his age. Chick was often the butt of jokes in the Shinonamaki Post, a humor newsletter written by a group of WCW ringside regulars known as the South Atlanta Boys, which included John, Craig Johnson Horton, Stephen Prazak, and future WCW broadcaster Scott Hudson. Donovan lost to the who's who of WCW for years, including some weird ones like Kensuke Sasaki, before wrapping up in summer 1995 with an unexpected United States title match against Sting. Donovan is still taking indie bookings to this day in his late 70s, including this cage match that I found that he won despite never actually getting in the cage. What the Golden Boy lacked in victories on the WCW stage, he sure made up for by being the world's sexiest AARP member. Our next jobber is a personal favorite, and this is how you can tell it's not a ranking, because this guy would be number one on any list. On any list of wrestlers in general, I love this dude. This guy is the most brothered out brother in the history of brethren. There are pro wrestlers, and then there are pro wrestlers. This guy is a pro wrestler. I am talking about the Rose, Jerry Bubba Rose. Just look at this guy. The bleached mullet that doesn't match his mustache, the jacket. There was no mistaking. This dude was a pro wrestler. Most enhancement guys had very plain ring outfits and very basic names. The Rose, Jerry Bubba Rose, bucked the system. He brothered out his look and brothered out his name. Jerry Rose dared to live the dream of having two nicknames. He couldn't just be Bubba. He couldn't just be The Rose. Heck, he didn't think his last name by itself drove home the whole Rose thing. Whereas most human beings, let alone wrestlers, would seem ridiculous being called The Rose, Jerry Bubba Rose. The Rose, Jerry Bubba Rose seems like the most fitting name possible for this dude. Old Bubba was a regular on WCW TV for most of 1990, getting the tar beaten out of him by the stars. This poor dude had multiple Steiner Brothers matches. I don't necessarily think Bubba was this hidden gem who could have done more in the industry. He seemed destined to be one of those guys who would go back home and brag to all of his buddies about the times he was beaten on TBS. Probably still has like a VHS tape of all of his matches that he shows his grandkids to this day. But he was one of those characters that could only exist in the realm of pro wrestling. And that is why pro wrestling is the best thing in the world. This next guy is so bland and just unassuming that shit, I forgot his name. What the hell was his name? I remember it now. John Peterson. I think. John Peterson. Peterson might be the perfect enhancement wrestler. Not too big, not too small, no tan, regular Great Clips haircut, literally nothing remarkable about the dude. He's like the Anvil of professional wrestling. Him? Peterson was a regular on WCW TV during the early 1990s, always on call when they needed a star to beat someone up. Peterson's most notable match was on the November 14th, 1992 episode of WCW Saturday Night, where he got to wrestle fellow enhancement stalwart Ian Weston in the Battle of the Underdogs, which was Bill Watts' journeyman challenge to give those guys some credibility. And even in that type of match, Peterson still took the fall via this weird O'Connor rule mutation. John was great because no matter the opponent, you knew that they would stand out against him because there was absolutely nothing memorable about him. And you know what? I like that about him. Like everything, wrestling needs that contrast. You can't build any stars if you don't also have someone like John Peterson on the card to make them stand out. I applaud John Peterson for daring to be so bland in an industry where it's all about individualism and getting attention for yourself. Bravo, Mr. Peterson. And our final jobber of the video is a smooth, bald, hardcore fella who just loved to get down and dirty, but he did not like wearing knee pads. Some folks call him Knuckles, but we know him as Dave Burkehead. Burkehead was a Northeastern indie wrestler who impressed Kevin Sullivan in a series of matches that they wrestled on the Maryland circuit and started getting booked on WCW Saturday Night on enhancement duty. The dude had an incredible indie name, Knuckles Zandwich. Of course, they didn't let him be Knuckles Zandwich on WCW TV. That would have been way too cool. I imagine he introduced himself to Jimmy Hart as Knuckles Zandwich, and Jimmy goes, "Nah, baby, you're Dave." Between Dave's height, smooth head, and complete lack of coordination, his matches always look like they asked a second grader to wrestle Scott Norton. The dude had real Gage Goldberg vibes. He was always fun to watch because he'd sell like every move was a complete surprise. He wrestled like he had the Impractical Jokers in his earpiece, punishing him for losing a challenge. Dave was a hardcore guy in the indies, so he got to become the hardcore enhancement wrestler when that division began in WCW. And what that meant was he didn't have to wear his tights anymore. For all the fun that I'm poking at this dude, I do have to give Burkehead credit for being the answer to a pivotal trivia question. Who was in the final WCW Saturday Night match ever and had a ladder dropped on his face by Brian Knobbs? Alright, so that does it for today. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me and talking about some jobbers, some WCW jobbers that I love. I think you should love too. If you didn't already love them before, of course, leave a comment. That's the most fun, is we can have a conversation in the comments. I respond to pretty much anything that's not just a jerk being jerky. And I think most viewers can attest to that by now. Look at the comments of all my other videos. I'm in there typing essays. Spending time with you, the viewer. So let me know what you think of the video, what you think of jobbers in general. Just let me know how your day is. I want to know. You guys are great, except for the bad ones. I hope if you're a bad one, I hope you're having a bad day. Mark Murrow's going to sue me now. Again, leave a comment, click the little subscribe thing. I think there's like a bell there so that you can get notifications whenever I post a video, because apparently YouTube, you sly dog, makes you click a second button if you want a notification for the video instead of just subscribing. It's like, how dare you? You rude little boy, YouTube. Why did I just gender YouTube? YouTube could be anything. Like, comment, subscribe, do the thing. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me, talking about jobbers. Again, my name is Tom. Fuck, that's bright.